So let's begin, shall we? I'd like to thank you all for coming electronically to our office here today. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mel Oakley. I'm the training center coordinator here at American Medical Response. Luke Warner is also sitting here with us. He's the operations supervisor and one of our people who helps out with the he'll be speaking a little bit later on for some of us. So I'm going to try to take up as little of your guys' time as I can today, but we do have a few important things we need to go over. So we'll begin. There we go. So the agenda for today, we have some communication stuff to talk about, the training site stuff to go over. We'll talk about e-cards. We'll talk about the new PAM, a few specific changes to the PAM that I want to draw your attention to. The new prices for cards, which if you haven't seen that already and you teach HeartSaver, that's going to be interesting for you. Upcoming new changes for equipment and some policies and exam stuff to go over. And let's begin. So real quick, I wanted to ask you all, and not that I want you all to answer me right now, but I'd like to know from you guys, how do you want to hear from us as a
not available. At the tone, please record your message. When you've finished recording, you may hang up or press 1 for more options. Has left the meeting.
You know, how much do you want to hear from us? That's the thing I'd like to know the most from all of you guys, is how much communication do you actually want from your training center? There's some things that the AHA sends out to everybody. There are some things that I need to send out to everybody because they send it to me, and then there's just stuff that comes along. So on the screen here is my email and my office phone number, and then also the general office number. What I'd like you to do is either write that down real quick. It's not on the screen that I can see here, so let me fix that. There we go.
Has joined the meeting.
Oops. There we go. Now, on the screen is my information. If you could all write that down, jot it down, or if you already have it, spectacular. But if you could use that information to drop me a line, emails preferred from me, letting me know about how much you'd like to hear from us. We've started to use a new email service to email all the people in the training center. I hope we have everybody in there. If you've not seen an email from us, I don't know how you're on this conference call, but if you haven't seen one from us and you think you should have them from us, let us know, and we'll update our system to have you added to that. My preference from you all is to email me for things. If you have a question about just about anything, specifically, hey, did my cards print, or I sent those things in and I can't find them in the mail from you. Those things are really best done through email if you can. You can call the office. If I'm not at the desk, then you gotta leave voicemail and I gotta call you back anyways. If Luke's in the office, he can grab it sometimes, but my preference from y'all would be email. Just the easiest thing for us to use. So if you have questions about anything, email is probably the best thing to use. That'd be my ask of you guys, is to email me. Those either have my cell phone number and know how to reach out and find me. That's spectacular. I would still prefer that things like, hey, did my cards come out yet, or what do I need to do for this thing? You know, those are really great email questions, and I'd prefer to have them go through that if you can. That's just my preferred thing. Training sites. We've established a number of training sites over the last 6 months or so. This is the list of them. If you're employed by one of these places, you probably know what the acronyms mean. If you don't think any of this makes any sense to you, you probably don't work for one of them, and that's fine.
Has joined the meeting.
If you're a part of one of the training sites, then you have a training site coordinator, and my ask for you would be to work with the training site coordinator for whatever you need. That's how we've set up the training site. So if you're a Spectrum Health United, a Great Lakes CMS, North Ottawa Community Hospital, a CEMS, I can't remember what CMS stands for, GR Medical Education Partners, Ross Medical Education, or Holland Hospital, or Grand Rapids Home for the Vets. If you work primarily at one of those spots and teach primarily for one of those places, there's somebody there for you to talk to. I am happy to field any questions you have or to help you out with anything. But my preference would be that you, and I believe your training site coordinator's preference would be for for you to go to them first. Also, when we get back to that idea of how much communication do you want from the training center, a lot of the things that we send to all of the instructors are going to skip most of the training site members and go right to the training site coordinator so they can disseminate that information. That's part of how we set this up. If you have questions about that, if you're not sure if you're part of a training site, drop me an email. I'll be happy to set you up with whoever you need to talk to and get you squared away with that. E-cards. Got to talk about e-cards. For those of you that haven't heard yet about e-cards are a thing. Most of my training sites right now that use e-cards love e-cards. It was a big scary thing that came out a little while back and everybody was talking about it and nobody was happy about it. And then we started using them and they work pretty well actually. So starting January 1st, 2018, the AHA will cease producing physical cards for provider cards. That means that once our stock here is run out, we're done giving provider cards on paper. My anticipation will be that most of you will switch over sooner and just kind of get with the e-card thing right away. So what is an e-card? E-card is basically an email. When you have your students in the classroom, you'll gather their email from them either ahead of time or as part of the being in class with them. And each student needs to have their own individual email. So if you have your community classes that you do and 2 or 3 people share an email, that's no good for the e-card situation. Each individual student needs their own email address. If you're putting cards in through the TCM, through our training center right now, and you see there's a spot on there for physical address and email address and phone number, and you've been looking past those things all along, you need to go back and start filling those things in now. So as you're putting in rosters, starting now, I suppose, fill in the email address and the phone number for each of the students you put a roster in for. That's how we generate the e-cards. The AHA has done nothing towards getting instructor cards switched over to e-card systems. So come July of next year or the year after, probably you're going to get a physical card from us. But all provider cards starting the 1st of next year are going to be electronic cards. The way that students receive those is they get an email from the AHA about a day or so after the class, depending on how we turn things around here. And they have to fill out another 6-question survey. And then they get to print or to just save a PDF with their card on it. Each card has a serial number essentially on it. And that number can be verified using a link to the AHA site. That link is in the email I sent out yesterday. It was towards the bottom of the email. There's a bunch of links on there. One of those links was the e-card verification link. If you're somebody who works with a lot of employers, I would encourage you to share that link with whoever it is you work for currently doing cards and doing classes, I should say, and help them to understand how this works. This is where I come back to you have my email address now. Please, if you have questions about this, contact me, and I'd be very happy to work through the e-card transition with whoever is having that headache. I came into the training center at just a fantastic time of transition where all the things are changing, and I'm learning quickly through trial by fire, and I'm happy to help you guys learn as well through that process. I'm not going to spend much more time on the e-cards. Some of you are totally
Mary Hutchison has joined the meeting.
Go with that. Some of you are lost and maybe nervous, and for those people, I would extend the invitation to have a chat. So we'll move on from that. Here a few weeks ago, or a month ago now, the AHA came out with their new PAM, effective 23rd September. We have a new PAM. There's the link I included in the email yesterday as well. I would encourage you to go out and check it out. There's a few changes in it. There's not a lot of changes I've seen so far, but I haven't digested the whole thing yet. One change in particular is the challenge option. So if you are an instructor who used the challenge option to create renewal cards for people, that is no longer a thing. If you have no idea what I refer to when I say the challenge option, fantastic, this doesn't apply to you. What the AHA wants is for all students to be in a course of some kind. The challenge option was used a lot by people who didn't have time to be in a full traditional class, and the AHA's got their HARP code programs now, and they would prefer students go into that now. So starting 21st September, the challenge option is no longer a thing. I didn't have a way for me to know when your card was or your roster was submitted, whether you did a challenge or not. So as far as I'm concerned, nobody's ever done them, but maybe people have been doing it. That's not a thing anymore. So if you have questions, let me know, but that's not a thing anymore. Heart Saver cards. October 3rd, the AHA dropped a bombshell on everybody in the training center, in the training center world, and raised the prices of Heart Saver cards. They were previously in the $2 to $3 a piece range, and the AHA changed their prices effective July 3rd to $17 each. Part of our training center management is we add $1.50 to the card so we can process it here. That makes our cards $18.50. That still, I think, is a lot cheaper than some people, but that's our pricing structure for our training center here. What they did is they dropped the price of Heart Saver books. That was their trade-off there. So Heart Saver books are a whole lot cheaper. In theory, the price of a class didn't change at all as long as you bought books for every student. If you are a instructor who didn't buy books for every student, if you use the library book model, this is going to have a noticeable change in the way you do things. Again, they didn't warn anybody about that. They just did that. Sincerely apologize for anybody who is having heartache or stress about this. There is literally nothing I can do about it. I would be happy to listen to you and talk to you about whatever the changes and how it affects you, but there's not much I can do to change that structure. That's that. There's nothing I can, not much more I can say about that. I did want to make sure everybody is aware of that. As soon as I was alerted to that problem or that situation, I did email out to everybody in my mailing list. I think I missed a lot of people and didn't get to them until about a week later. So that's that. There's another change coming in the next year and a little bit. The adult healthcare provider classes will require a feedback device. So what the AHA wants to have you do is use something that will provide you with. Yeah.
I used weekends to guide. I didn't use it at all, but
I think so.
I did use it.
Question just came in. The Heart Saver cards are the only ones that had a price change at this time. The healthcare provider classes, the ACLS, the PALS, the PAIRS, the EP, ACLS, the BLS, I think that's all the healthcare provider classes. Those haven't changed at this time. I don't anticipate those changing, but I didn't anticipate this change happening either. So that's only the Heart Saver cards and books that have changed prices. Again, if anything does change in that, I'll get back to you and let you know. So the new feedback devices that the AHA is requiring, starting January 1st, 2019, you have to have a device to be used for testing of your adult CPR skill in your healthcare provider classes that has feedback. This means something that will give you lights or sound to tell you how deep or how fast or how well the hand placement is for your CPR. To my knowledge, so far, they're not going to implement any of these changes into the pediatric CPR check sheets yet, but for the adult testing for the healthcare disciplines, so your BLS and your PALS and your ACLS and so on and so forth, you'll be required to use, I guess not PALS, sorry, for your adult CPR test out, you'll be required to use a feedback device.
Well, the only thing she's not supposed to do.
That's going to cost some money. The device I looked into from Laerdal is around $1,600. There's other devices out there. I know there are. I haven't seen many of them yet, but I wanted to let you all know soon if that those changes are coming. I don't know a ton about what all the different models are that will work for this. My hope is that as we have this network of people within the training center that all have different ways of doing things, is that if one of you finds something that is a screaming deal and wants to share that deal with the rest of the training center, that you would let me know, and I can push that out to the rest of the training center people. That's one of the reasons I asked you in the beginning of this to let me know what your preference is for me communicating to you. If you're somebody who doesn't want to hear from me when somebody else finds a screaming deal on some piece of equipment, let me know that, and I'll make different lists for different kinds of information like that. We have a little over a year to implement this. This came out a few months ago. I'll do my best to help you help you get this information squared away, but, or this change implemented here, but, that's what we know about that. There's a memo that came out about that. I'd be happy to forward that on to anybody who is interested in reading. And I saw questions, and let me see if I can get questions come up on my screen so I can read them. People keep.
Yeah, I haven't seen it up here yet, so.
I'm gonna go to 2 of them, and people are like, "Oh my gosh, why are you doing that? Because we're supposed to. Like, I want to get it done now. I'm not
Exactly.
stressing."
That's
Okay,
great.
sorry, I
Oh, that's okay.
All right, so I can't find the notes to, or the comments, so I'll try to figure that out and answer those at the end here, but, all right. So we have a number of policies we're gonna try to just kind of go over. One of the things that we, identified here recently is that we didn't have clearly defined policies for all of our training center members. And so as a way to help clarify the expectation for the members of our training center, we sat down and hammered out some policies. First one, obviously, course delivery. Follow the instructor manual, the PAM, and the training memos. That one's not terribly in depth or detailed, but it does bear being on a policy. The next policy we have to talk about is complaint resolution. So, and then I'm going to send a copy of this document out to everybody who is in the training center here probably tomorrow. I'll just read it real quick. Any complaints regarding members of the training center will be handled personally by the training center coordinator. A thorough investigation will be completed to ensure the validity of each complaint or each valid complaint within an 18-month rolling period. We have the structure on the screen here. So first occurrence is going to be a coaching. That'd be you come on in, we have a conversation, we talk about what the complaint was. We'll have a chat, no big deal. The second one in 18 months will be a verbal warning. We'll keep track of those, but it won't be a big deal. Certainly by that point, should be on attention of what's going on in the classroom. Third occurrence, that'll be a written. We're getting kind of near the end of the rope at that point. A fourth occurrence in 18 months is going to be kind of a big deal. That's going to be no longer part of our training center here. I don't anticipate ever reaching even the second level of this, but no policy book would be complete without this sort of thing in it. So there we are. We do have a caveat into our policy here that depending on the severity of the complaint, that the first occurrence of something pretty serious can get you gone. But that won't be a decision that's made by one person. It won't be a decision that's made lightly. So we'll certainly be a fair, just cause evaluation. The renewal process. Now, this is the thing that I want to make sure everybody understands, because every one of you will at some point need to renew your certification. Some of you may have this year, so you're fairly familiar with it. Some of you may be doing it next year and are curious how it goes. So the process for our training center is that every card expires at the end of June on the year that it expires.
A participant has joined the meeting.
Excellent. If you're new to the training center, then that's how we do it. Everything expires at the end of June. One of the things you do for your renewal is you take a proctored exam. So somebody will provide you the exam. That somebody will be either myself or Luke in our office, or if you're part of a training site, then you will take the exam with somebody your training site coordinator designates. Maybe themselves, maybe somebody else. One of the points about this is that this is a no reference exam. I know that the AHA says that students can take the exam utilizing whatever reference material they choose, but as an instructor, I believe that instructors need to be subject matter experts on the topic they're teaching. Therefore, in order to remain an instructor in our training center, the exam you take will be without reference material. Now that exam is going to be the provider exam. It's not the, we don't retake the instructor exam at this time. We only take the provider exam. The idea being obviously that you take the exam on your own. There is a $50 fee for certification period. That's your training center membership fee. Call it a dues if you prefer, but we collect that at the time we renew your card. That gets you good until the next time we have to renew your card. One of the things you need to do is teach 4 classes in 2 years for each discipline. For some people, that might be a bit of a challenge. And for some people, that's going to be the first 2 months of their certification period. But that's one of the requirements we have under the renewal process. Also, any updates that have been assigned by the AHA for your disciplines will need to be completed at that time and collected from us. Now, if an update comes out, we're going to work with your training site coordinator, or we'll be in touch with you directly to make sure that you've completed that, because the AHA doesn't give me a way to see a report for every one of the instructors to see who's completed that. So if a new update comes out, we'll contact you all and say, hey, the update is out. It is due by this date. And if you don't have evidence to us of the completion of those updates, then we'll deactivate you in the training center. Obviously, that would be our preference not to have to do that, but now you know why it's important we have a valid email to get a hold of everybody within the training center. This is one of the reasons we developed that training site structure, is so that people who are co-located and have a essentially a chain of command with their employer, they can kind of handle these things on that end. New cards will be issued at the time of the renewal and mailed to the instructor or your local, will just give them to you. Next, exams. The AHA has taken a new, kind of a new stance on the exam stuff. The only way we can get exams out is if I go and download them off of the training center software from the instructor network. This week, we came to realize that perhaps they're protected and perhaps you can't print them if you're not me. And frustrating. We're sorting out what that means, but I emailed one set of exams to one instructor. They printed it and said, I don't even know what you're talking about. That was no problem at all. And I've had long conversation with another instructor about trying to get the exam I mailed them printed off. So we're sorting that out right now, and that's new to me. So I don't have tons of great news or insight into that. They just recently started doing the new thing where I have to go download them, and I'm sorting it out. Stay tuned. If you're somebody who needs to get exams from me, maybe don't wait till the day you need the exam to get a hold of me to figure out what to do with that. I'm trying to make it as seamless and simple of a process as I can, but that's what we're working with. AHA's new memo that came out here recently is this right here. That's a screenshot from it. Again, if you'd like to see the memo, I'm happy to email it to you. It's open on my desktop here. Basically, the idea is don't let the exams get out. That's the biggest thing about it, is exam security. We have a policy here that says that you need to keep control of the exam and don't let them leave the building at the end of the class. That's one of the biggest ways we've had breaches to the exams throughout the years, is with students walking out the door at the end of class with an exam. Record keeping. Right off the bat, I'll say 3 years. This is a question I fielded a number of times so far this year. People asking, all right, I've got all these records. How long do I need to keep them? The official word is 3 years. You need to keep your records. That doesn't mean you need to physically keep them. You can scan them. You can save them wherever, microfilm, I suppose, if you want. But you got to keep them for 3 years. The rosters are submitted to the TC for us to make your cards. If you are a training site, and maybe you make your own cards, you need to hang on to those rosters so you can turn them in once a year to the training center for our record keeping. Exams, the testing sheets, evals, those are all retained by the instructor or the site. We don't want you mailing those to us. I don't have anything I would do with them if you mailed it to me anyways. If you teach under a training center that is not our training center and you need to get credit for teaching that there's a form that you can use for that. I can email you that form. I think you can download that form on the instructor network. But that form can be filled out by the instructor you taught with, and then you can put it in your record. That would give you credit towards your 4 times you need to teach within 2 years. That's going to be helpful for some of you, I think. That's what we have for our first part here. That's my contact information again. I'd like to hear from you guys about what you would prefer as far as communication goes from me. I'm going to try to unmute the rest of you so that if there's any questions, we can field those right now.